A stranger sat next to me on a train and told my life story. The train was almost empty when he sat down across from me, smiling like he'd been expecting me. Not in a friendly, oh, what a coincidence kind of way, but in that unsettling, too knowing way that makes your stomach flip. I was slouched in my seat, headphones in, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, hoping to disappear into some kind of digital oblivion, and then he appeared. It started innocently enough. At first, I barely registered him. Mid-30s, a dark coat, kind of rugged, but not unkempt, eyes that seemed just a touch too sharp for someone sitting quietly in a train carriage at 11 p.m. He didn't look threatening exactly, but something about him made my skin crawl, like a mosquito buzzing right outside your ear that you can't quite swat. "Long day?" he asked, his voice calm, almost soothing. I froze, not because he had said anything particularly alarming, just because it felt like he knew me already. I looked up from my phone, squinting at him. Yeah, you could say that," I mumbled. I wasn't used to talking to strangers, especially not ones who seemed perfectly at ease invading your personal space. He smiled wider. "I noticed you were staring at that photo on your phone earlier. The one with the little red notebook?" I blinked. My heart did that weird flutter that only happens when something completely impossible happens. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel the sweat creeping up my neck. "The one you keep tucked under your arm. I've seen it before," he said, like he was mentioning the weather. My mind raced. I hadn't told a soul about that notebook. Not my roommate, not my best friend, not even my sister. I mean, it was my little secret. A collection of thoughts, sketches, and random life notes I'd been keeping for years. How the hell did he know about it? I don't know what you're talking about," I said, clutching my bag closer as if that would somehow make him less real. He leaned back, arms crossed, and chuckled softly, like he knew I was lying to myself as much as to him. Sure, denial is natural, but you don't have to hide it from me. I know you." I wanted to laugh or scream or run, but the train was moving and I was trapped in this carriage with him. I looked around, hoping for some kind of help or at least a witness, but it was mostly empty. A couple of people sprawled out in seats, half asleep, headphones in, oblivious to the world, perfectly oblivious. And there I was, stuck with a man who claimed to know me better than I knew myself. I tried to rationalize. Maybe he saw me earlier on the platform. Maybe he guessed from my expressions. Maybe no. There was no way. No stranger could have guessed about the notebook. Not like that. "So, do I know you?" I asked, my voice a notch higher than intended. He smiled that same unnerving smile. "Not yet, but you will, eventually." And just like that, my unease spiked. There was something deliberate about him, like he had a script he was following and I was the only audience. "I think you're mistaken," I said, trying to sound firm, though my fingers were starting to shake. "I don't know you." He leaned slightly forward, elbows on his knees. "Mistaken? Maybe, but I know you. Everyone knows you in a way. Your little habits, your fears, your guilty pleasures. The ones you try to hide. I know the ones that keep you up at night." I laughed nervously, hoping he'd think I was joking. "Yeah, right. That's kind of creepy, actually." He didn't flinch, didn't even smirk. He just kept staring at me, calmly, as though he was waiting for me to accept some inevitable truth. "You take the same train every night, right? Always the 11:07. Always with a black coat, headphones in, scrolling through your phone to avoid talking to anyone." I swallowed hard. My pulse was racing. This was beyond coincidence. He was watching me, or he somehow knew me in ways that didn't make sense. How do you know that?" I stammered. He tilted his head, studying me, and said almost conversationally, "Because I watch, I pay attention, and, well, I've been waiting for tonight. My mind screamed at me to stand up, to run, to do anything but sit there and let him get closer to whatever he wanted. But something, call it fear, call it fascination, kept me glued to my seat. "I think you need to leave," I said finally, my voice firmer this time. "Leave?" he repeated, tilting his head like a curious cat. "Why would I do that? We're just getting started." And then, without another word, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He slid it across the seat toward me. I hesitated, but curiosity won over caution. I unfolded it and froze. It was my name, my full address, and a little note in handwriting I knew was mine. A line from my notebook, the red notebook he had mentioned. I swallowed. "This isn't possible," I whispered. He shrugged. "Isn't it?" The train rattled along, the dim lights flickering slightly, casting shadows across his face. Shadows that didn't belong to any one person. Shadows that hinted at knowledge, at secrets, at something darker. I tried to think. Maybe it was some elaborate prank. Maybe someone had been following me for days, learning every little detail. But the thought was both thrilling and terrifying. And honestly, I couldn't stop looking at him. "Why are you doing this?" I asked finally, my voice shaky. "Because," he said softly, leaning back, eyes glinting under the harsh, fluorescent lights. "You've been waiting for someone like me without even knowing it. You've been carrying your life around in pieces. Little secrets, little regrets. And I'm here to put the puzzle together, whether you want me to or not." I laughed, or tried to. It came out hollow. "This is insane. You're insane." He smiled. Maybe I'm exactly what you need." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The train rattled on, each click of the tracks amplifying my heartbeat. I wanted to look away, wanted to stop listening, wanted to wake up and find this was a nightmare. But I couldn't. I was trapped in this carriage, trapped in this conversation, trapped with a man who knew me better than I knew myself. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning. Do you know everything about me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He tilted his head again. Everything? Not yet, but I will. And soon, you'll understand why. And then he leaned back, eyes locked on mine, and added, almost casually, some things are better left unsaid. But not tonight. Tonight, you need to listen. The train hissed as it entered a tunnel, darkness swallowing us for a few seconds before the dim light returned. My heart raced. Every instinct screamed at me to bolt. Every rational thought told me this was impossible. And yet, the man across from me smiled, calm, knowing, like the world had already tilted on its axis, and I just hadn't noticed. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Fight? Run? Call someone? But deep down, I knew nothing would stop this. The stranger had entered my life, my train, my night, and somehow my mind. And I had a terrifying feeling I wouldn't get him out again. As the train carried us forward, each passing station felt like a countdown. I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know if I wanted to, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. By the time this ride was over, nothing about my life or me would be the same again. And the stranger, sitting there with that impossibly calm smile, seemed to know that better than anyone. He knew things no one could have known, not even my closest friends. I still remember the way he leaned back in his seat that night, the dim train lights flickering across his face, calm and unnervingly precise, as if he'd rehearsed this moment for years. My phone was in my lap, forgotten. My eyes were wide, heart hammering in a rhythm I didn't even recognize anymore. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to get up, to run, to tell someone. But my curiosity held me captive. Do you remember the summer of '09? He asked casually, as if discussing the weather. I blinked, confused. What about it? He smiled faintly. You were 8. You were at your cousin's birthday party. Outside, near the pool, you had that blue swimsuit with the tiny sailboats on it. You were terrified of the water, hiding behind the plastic flamingo, but you wanted to join anyway. Your cousin tried to coax you in, and you ended up screaming when someone splashed near your feet. You fell backward into the grass, scraping your knee, and cried for hours while your mom tried to comfort you. I froze. My hands gripped the edge of my seat. How could he know that? That story hadn't left my family. I hadn't told anyone outside that circle. Not a friend, not a diary. Well, maybe the diary, but I'd never shared it with anyone, and it had been tucked away for years. That's impossible, I muttered. He tilted his head, his gaze unwavering. Impossible, maybe, but true. I swallowed hard, trying to laugh it off. Okay, that was a long time ago. Kids do embarrassing things all the time. Yes, he said softly, leaning closer. But not everyone remembers the small humiliations that shape them, the ones that burrow into your memory, that quietly make you who you are. You do, and I do too. The train rattled along the tracks, carrying us through the dark, empty cityscape. I felt exposed, naked. He was pulling back layer after layer of my life, and I didn't even know how. You liked drawing little monsters back then, didn't you? He continued. Tiny sketches in the margins of notebooks you didn't want anyone to see. The ones you'd hide under your pillow when your mom cleaned your room. I swallowed. My pulse jumped. My voice trembled. How do you know that? I see patterns, he said. I notice habits. I watch. Sometimes for years. I wanted to deny it, but my chest felt tight, my mind spinning. Watching me for years? That's insane. But the memories he described were accurate. Every single detail. And it didn't stop there. He began recounting moments I had buried, ones I'd never told anyone. Your first crush, he said, voice soft. You were 10. You wrote her a note with your heart racing, slipped it into her locker, and spent the entire day hoping she'd read it. When she laughed, you hid behind the bleachers, crying because it wasn't the reaction you wanted. You never told anyone. Not even your best friend at the time, because you thought it was too embarrassing. I felt my stomach churn. That's impossible. No, it's not, he said calmly. You remember the feel of that note, the smell of the locker room, the way the paper crinkled under your fingertips. I remember it too. I tried to focus on the train, on the rhythmic clatter of the tracks, on anything outside the window, but I couldn't. He was inside my head, every word a scalpel, dissecting memories I thought were mine alone. He continued, and I couldn't stop him, even if I wanted to. High school, he said. The science fair. You were terrified your project wouldn't work. You stayed up all night hiding in your room, soldering circuits, and double-checking calculations. When your project actually functioned, you smiled quietly to yourself, but pretended you weren't proud when your teacher praised it. I felt my hands shaking on my knees. How is he doing this? And the friendship you thought would last forever, he said, his voice softer now, almost intimate. The one that ended with that fight over nothing. You didn't want it to end, but you never apologized. You carried that guilt quietly for months. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. It's all here, he said, tapping lightly on his temple. The small moments, the secrets, the things that make you, you, and the things you hide from yourself too. I realized I was holding my breath. I wanted to run, to scream, to call the conductor, to jump off the train, but my legs were frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. And the fears, he said, the ones you've never told anyone. You're terrified of being forgotten, of being insignificant. You worry that no one really sees you, that you're just passing through life unnoticed. You lie awake at night thinking about all the things you haven't done, all the chances you missed. You're afraid of failing, but more afraid of being indeed invisible. I could feel tears forming. How did he know? Did he follow me as a child? As a teenager? Was he some kind of stalker? But even that didn't make sense. I had never seen him before. Not in person, not online. And yet, here he was, recounting my innermost thoughts like he had been living inside my head. I had to interrupt. Why are you telling me this? He leaned back, eyes locked on mine, and said, because you need to hear it. You've been hiding from yourself for too long, pretending you're fine, pretending nothing matters, but it does, and someone has to remind you. I shook my head. This is insane. I'm going to get off at the next stop. He smiled faintly. You won't. You can't, not yet. Tonight isn't about stops. Tonight is about understanding, about seeing what you've been blind to. I felt panic rising, but alongside it, something else. A strange sense of clarity, as if the act of him speaking aloud these hidden truths was stripping away layers of denial I hadn't even known I had. He paused, letting the silence settle over us. Then he leaned slightly forward. You remember your first real heartbreak? I froze. My throat tightened. I hadn't told anyone about it. Not my closest friends, not my family, not even in my journal. The memory was a raw, jagged thing I tried to bury. You were 17, he said softly. It was spring. You gave your heart to someone who didn't even know it existed. You remember the way they laughed? The way they brushed their hair behind their ear? The way you thought that smile could save you from everything? And then they left. You felt hollow. And you swore you'd never let anyone close again. That hollow feeling, it's still there, waiting. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong, to scream that he couldn't possibly know. But the truth, it was too raw, too accurate. You've been carrying it with you all these years, he continued, his voice calm, almost hypnotic. In the quiet moments, when you think no one's watching, it comes back. It shapes your choices. It whispers in your ear, reminding you of everything you've lost and everything you fear losing. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. My hands gripped my bag, knuckles white. This isn't normal. This isn't real. This isn't possible. He leaned back, hands in his lap, studying me like a painter observing a canvas. I've seen it all. The laughter, the embarrassment, the shame, the love, the fear, every detail, every hidden corner of your life. And soon you'll see why it matters. Why every single one of these moments was necessary. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was reeling, spinning faster than the train hurtling through the night. The point isn't just to scare you, he said softly. It's to prepare you, to wake you up. You've been walking through life half asleep, thinking you're alone. But you're not. Someone has been watching. Someone has been waiting. And tonight, everything changes. I tried to speak again, to ask the questions tearing at my brain, but he raised a hand, stopping me. What's coming next? He said, his voice low, deliberate, will change everything. And just like that, he leaned back, a shadow of a smile on his lips, leaving me in a state of suspended terror, disbelief, and something I couldn't name, anticipation, dread, awe, all of it. The train continued its relentless journey through the darkened city. I felt like I was dangling on the edge of something immense, something terrifying, something inevitable. And I knew, without a doubt, that I wasn't going to sleep tonight, not for a long, long time, because the stranger wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I needed to know if he was lying, or if I was about to lose control of my own life. After that night on the train, sleep became a distant memory. I kept replaying every word he said, every detail he revealed over and over in my head. Childhood memories, secrets, humiliations, fears, things I hadn't shared with anyone, he knew them all. And the more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. This wasn't just coincidence. This wasn't luck. This was someone who had spent years somehow knowing me. And if he knew everything, what did that mean for me? I started small. I retraced my steps, mentally cataloging who might have access to my life. Friends, family, exes, coworkers, anyone who might have been paying attention long enough to memorize every detail. But none of it made sense. There were gaps that couldn't be explained by normal observation. The stranger's knowledge wasn't just deep, it was intimate, almost psychic in its precision. So I decided to investigate. First, I went digital. I scanned my social media accounts, looking for clues, anything that might connect to him. My posts were public, but most were mundane. Selfies, random check-ins, occasional vacation photos, nothing that could have given him insight into my inner life. And yet I started noticing patterns. Someone or something was lurking in the background. Comments that were too vague to be friendly but oddly specific. Likes on posts that had been live for years. The kind of attention you don't see unless someone has been studying your habits, your reactions over a long period of time. Then I checked my old contacts, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Childhood friends, classmates, even my cousin who threw that birthday party he mentioned. I called some, texted others, pretending I was doing a casual catch-up experiment. I asked seemingly innocent questions. Hey, do you remember when? Or, do you still have that thing? Nothing. But in my searches, I stumbled across something strange. A profile that looked generic at first glance. No pictures, no real information. But one of the posts mentioned the exact summer of '09. The post talked about a birthday pool party, a kid afraid of water falling into the grass. A comment below said, I remember exactly that day. She was terrified, but tried so hard to be brave. My chest tightened. The comment, it was in my handwriting, or at least it looked like it. I couldn't tell if it was memory or manipulation, but something about it was eerily familiar. I started seeing him everywhere, not literally, but in ways that made my stomach knot. A reflection in a store window that looked like him. A barista who mentioned something only someone who knew me intimately could know. I questioned myself constantly. Was my mind playing tricks? Was I losing it? Or was he really out there watching, waiting? I went back to the train that night, hoping for a repeat encounter, hoping to catch him in the act. I sat at my usual spot, 11:07 p.m., staring out the window, and I waited. Minutes passed. Then a figure appeared in the distance. He walked past the other carriages slowly, deliberately. I felt my pulse spike. He didn't sit with me that night, but just the sight of him made my chest tighten. My mind raced. How could he be here so quickly? Did he know I'd be here? Was he following me? I started keeping a log, tracking every detail. Where I went, when, what I did, who I saw. Every little pattern was recorded. Every unusual occurrence, someone noticing my notebook, someone glancing at me too long, was highlighted. The more I documented, the more it felt like I was mapping a predator, and maybe I was. Then came the red herrings, people who seemed suspicious but turned out to be nothing. A man in a coffee shop who always seemed to be reading when I was there, glancing in my direction. A woman at the library who lingered near the same shelf I chose. Emails from unknown accounts with vague references to my past. Each time, my hope that I might be imagining things or that the stranger was harmless died a little more. I couldn't stop myself. I had to know. One night, I decided to test him. I posted something online, a small detail, completely fabricated. I wrote in a private group, remember when I got stuck in the treehouse in 3rd grade? Scariest day ever. Something that had never happened. The next day, a message appeared on my phone. You don't remember it the way it really happened. My hands shook. My heart raced. He knew. He knew the truth, even about things that never existed. I started questioning reality. Was he reading my mind? Was I being followed, manipulated, or something else? Every time I glanced at a reflection, I felt his presence. Every casual comment from a stranger, every whisper in passing made me jump. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on work. All I could think about was him. I even tried reaching out to private investigators. I hired someone discreet, explained the situation in vague terms. They promised to look into it, but even they seemed unnerved when I described the stranger. The investigator kept asking, are you sure he's real? And I hated that question. Of course he's real. How could I be wrong about this? Then came the subtle appearances. Not direct, but enough to send chills down my spine. A reflection in the glass of a train station, someone standing a few feet behind me. I turned and he was gone. A mention on a news broadcast about a person who seemed familiar. I couldn't place it, but the way it was framed felt personal. A slip of a comment from a coworker. Didn't you used to know someone who always seemed everywhere? Everywhere. That word kept echoing in my mind. Everywhere he is. I started to realize a terrifying possibility. This wasn't just knowledge. This was control. This was power. And if he could know so much, he could influence so much. One evening, I confronted a friend I trusted. Someone who had known me for years. Have you noticed anything strange? Like someone watching? Someone knowing things? I asked cautiously. She looked at me, frowning. I don't know. Why? I told her a fraction of what had happened. Her expression shifted from confusion to concern, but she didn't understand. How could she? The details were mine alone, and somehow he knew them. I think, I said, lowering my voice, someone's been following me for years. Her eyes widened. You mean like a stalker? Yes, I whispered, but more than that. Someone who knows everything about me. The next day, I noticed something strange. My reflection in the subway window, a face that wasn't quite mine, a shadow in the corner, just for a moment. I spun around. No one there, but the feeling lingered, heavy in my chest. I started to feel hunted. Every corner, every street, every reflection was a potential observation point. I became hyper-aware of my environment. I changed routines. I walked different routes. I didn't look at my phone in public. I didn't trust anyone. And yet, the stranger's influence seemed to seep into every aspect of my life. Then came the text, out of nowhere. No number, no sender, just words. You're asking the wrong questions. Look closer. I panicked. I wanted to delete it, to ignore it, to pretend it didn't exist. But I couldn't. I had to know. And that's when it hit me. The investigation wasn't about discovering who he was. It was about understanding what he wanted. Why me? Why now? And the answer, I realized with a cold, sinking feeling, might not be something I wanted to hear. Because this wasn't curiosity anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This was a threat. He wasn't just someone who knew me. He was someone who could destroy me or change me in ways I couldn't imagine. And for the first time, I truly understood. I wasn't just being watched. I was being hunted. I finally asked him, why me? And he smiled like I'd just asked the wrong question. I'd spent weeks, maybe months, though time felt distorted now, tracking every hint, every whisper, every reflection that might give me a clue about who he was, what he wanted, and why my life had become his obsession. I thought I was prepared. I thought I understood what I was getting into. I was wrong. It started the night I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I knew he was out there. I could feel it in the way the city felt smaller, in the way shadows seemed to follow me, in the unshakable feeling that every street corner, every train, every bus might hold him. I was done waiting, done guessing. I found him, or maybe he found me. It was a quiet street near my apartment, one I'd avoided for years, dimly lit, almost abandoned at night. And there he was, leaning against a lamppost, hands in his coat pockets, calm as if he'd been waiting for me. Of course he had. He always had. I froze for a second. My pulse raced, heart thumping in a rhythm that matched the flickering light above him. I took a deep breath, then stepped forward. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking more than I intended. He tilted his head. "Finally," he said softly, almost kindly. "I've been waiting for this moment. You've been following me." I spat the words, unable to contain my fear. "Watching me, knowing things you shouldn't. You need to stop." He shook his head, stepping closer, his eyes calm but piercing. "Stop? Oh no. We're far past stopping. We're at the part where you need to understand why." I swallowed hard, trying to muster courage. Why me? Why my life? Why all of this? And then he smiled. That same unsettling smile, calm, precise, like he'd been expecting this question for years. "Why you?" he repeated, voice soft, almost a whisper that somehow carried through the night air. "Because you've always been central, even when you didn't know it, even when no one else noticed. You've been connected to something bigger than yourself, something I've been trying to protect for your own good." I blinked. "Connected? Connected how? What are you talking about?" He stepped closer, and suddenly the street felt too small, the night too heavy. "Do you remember your childhood friend, Emily?" I froze. Emily had been my first real best friend, the one who disappeared suddenly when we were 12. Her parents moved across the country, and she vanished from my life without a word. But she hadn't disappeared entirely. I'd always suspected something else. "What about her?" I asked cautiously. He nodded as if confirming something only he knew. "She never left. Not really, and she left clues, hints you were too young to understand at the time. You were targeted that summer. Someone was watching, someone who wanted to hurt you. But she protected you. She left signals in your life that you were oblivious to, small things, seemingly random, that guided you, kept you safe." I took a step back. "What? Who? Who wanted to hurt me?" He shook his head. "It doesn't matter yet. What matters is this. I've been here, making sure you survived, guiding you, watching over you, keeping you from falling into danger you never saw. And I've been waiting for the moment you were ready to understand." I felt my knees weaken. My hands shook. "You're saying all this, all the stalking, all the everything? You were protecting me?" He nodded slowly. "Not in a conventional way. Sometimes, the only way to protect someone is to be in their life. Invisible, guiding, shaping, correcting mistakes before they become fatal. You've been lucky. You just didn't know it." I wanted to scream, to hit him, to throw up from the terror and relief swirling inside me. Lucky? I've been terrified. I've been paranoid. I've been losing my mind, and you're still learning," he said calmly. "You've been strong, even in your fear. That's why you're here tonight, asking questions. That's why this moment matters." I shook my head. "You think this justifies it? Knowing everything about me? Watching me? Manipulating my life?" He didn't flinch. "Manipulating? I've only steered you, guided you. You were never aware because you were too young, too naive. And now, you're old enough to understand. But there's more, much more." I swallowed, fear and confusion mixing in a knot in my chest. "More? What more?" He looked me directly in the eyes. "Do you remember your cousin's accident last year? The one you never told anyone about?" I blinked. "Accident? What are you talking about?" "You didn't tell anyone because you thought it was private. Shameful, but I know. I was there. Not directly, of course not. But I knew. And because of what I knew, I was able to prevent a chain of events that could have ended in disaster. Your cousin is alive because of me." I felt my stomach drop. My cousin? Someone I loved? Alive? I hadn't even thought about it that way. My mind was spinning. "You saved them?" He nodded. "And now you have to trust me to understand why. Everything I've done, every secret, every observation, it's led to this point." "What point?" I whispered, fear creeping in again. "Why are you really here? What do you want from me?" He leaned closer, voice dropping. "I want you to see the truth. About your life, about the people around you, about yourself. You're on the edge of a revelation that will change everything you know, and tonight it begins." I felt tears prick at my eyes. Relief, confusion, terror, all of it rolled into one. You expect me to just believe this? To trust you after everything?" He shook his head. "No, I expect you to confront it, to question it, to understand that your life, your choices were never entirely your own, but they were necessary. Every humiliation, every fear, every heartbreak, it was all preparing you, and I'm here to make sure you finally see it." I backed up instinctively. "This is insane. You're insane." "Perhaps," he said, calm as ever. "Or perhaps I'm the only one telling you the truth. Do you want to know why you felt haunted, watched, sometimes even guided? Why coincidences keep happening in your life? Why you've had these inexplicable moments of fear and clarity?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Yes, I need to know." He smiled faintly, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Because you were chosen. Not randomly, not by chance. Someone decided long ago that your life would matter, that you would face challenges others couldn't survive. And that someone was me." I wanted to recoil, to turn away, to pretend none of this was real. But the truth, it clawed at me, raw and undeniable. I couldn't deny the way he knew things no one should have known. I couldn't deny the patterns, The coincidences, the subtle appearances, the shadows and reflections, the texts, the whispers. You're saying all this, it's for my own good? I asked, voice shaking. He nodded. In a way, but it's more than that. It's about what comes next. You've survived the past. Now it's time to face the future. And the future will not be gentle. My heart pounded. What do you mean? He leaned even closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. There are people who want to see you fail. People who want to destroy you. People who've been lying in wait, preparing for the moment you would be vulnerable. And you were almost too late. I froze. The weight of his words hit me like a punch. My life, my safety, my very sense of reality. Everything had been on the line and I didn't even know it. You're saying there's a threat? I whispered. He nodded slowly. A threat you don't fully understand yet. One that's intertwined with your past, your present, and everything you think you know. And if you don't act, it will consume you. I backed up, hands shaking. I don't know if I can trust you, or even understand any of this. He smiled, that faint, knowing smile. That's natural, and that's why tonight matters. You're going to see things you can't unsee, secrets you can't forget. And by the end of it, you'll have to decide who to trust and who to fight. I felt dizzy. My knees nearly buckled. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Ready? He said softly. No one ever is, but you don't get a choice. Not really. Life has been preparing you for this moment for years, and I'm here to guide you through it, or at least as best I can. And then, without another word, he turned and walked into the shadows of the street, leaving me standing there, heart racing, mind spinning, and utterly certain of one thing. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about safety, about control, was about to be shattered. And the revelation he hinted at, the one he said would change everything, was just around the corner. Everything I thought I knew about myself was a lie, and he made sure I realized it. After that confrontation on the quiet street, I became obsessed. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on work, couldn't even speak to friends without feeling like I was being watched. Or worse, that they were part of it somehow. Every memory, every reflection, every coincidence seemed to converge toward him. He was no longer just a person. He had become the lens through which I experienced reality. And then it happened. I received a message, anonymous, untraceable. Meet me where it all began, midnight. You need to see this for yourself. I didn't know why, but I obeyed. The words weren't a command. They were a summons, irresistible, like the pull of a tide. I spent hours preparing myself, questioning my sanity, questioning every decision I'd made in the last few weeks. But deep down, I knew I had to go. I had to confront the truth, no matter how horrifying. The location was a decrepit warehouse on the edge of the city, a place I had driven past dozens of times but never entered, the kind of place that smelled of rust and secrets. The doors creaked as I pushed them open and my eyes struggled to adjust to the dim light. And there he was, calm, waiting, smiling that same unnerving smile. You came, he said, voice soft but deliberate. I had to, I replied, my voice trembling. I need to know the truth, who you are, what this is, why me. He gestured for me to follow. All in due time, he said. But first, look. He led me to a wall covered in photographs, newspaper clippings, and notes pinned haphazardly across the surface. My life, every moment he had described, every detail I thought was private, was here, documented, mapped, and analyzed. And then, the twist hit me like a punch to the gut. Not all of the photos were mine. Some were of people I had never met, strangers, and some were of me. But as a child, I didn't remember being. I turned to him, panic rising. What is this? Why are there other people? And that's me? But I don't remember. He nodded slowly. Not your memories? Not entirely. Those were planted, seeded, and sometimes replaced. You've been living a curated life designed to lead you here, to make you ready for this moment, to make you aware. I stumbled back. What? What do you mean? Planted? Curated? You were never alone, he said calmly. You were always observed. But the truth is, you are not who you think you are. Your life, your experiences, even your memories. They're partly yours, partly constructed. You were chosen for a reason. I felt bile rise in my throat. Chosen? For what? He paused, letting the silence stretch between us. To survive what's coming, to see things others cannot, to carry knowledge that could destroy or save lives, and only you could handle it. I shook my head. This is insane. You're insane. I can't, he interrupted, voice low but commanding. Listen, everything you've believed about yourself, about your past, your family, your choices, it's been a lie. Not entirely fabricated, but carefully manipulated. You were trained in a way, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, to be prepared for what I've been guarding you against. I felt a cold sweat on my back. Guarding me? From what? He walked closer, the shadows of the warehouse stretching long and sinister behind him. From people who would see you destroyed, from events in your family you were never meant to remember, from a life that could have ended before it even began. Do you remember the accident your cousin had? The one I mentioned before? That was just the beginning. You were never safe, and you never would have been. Not without someone orchestrating your path. I shook my head violently. It can't be. None of it makes sense. You're some kind of psycho. He chuckled softly. Maybe. Or maybe I'm the only one telling you the truth. And the truth isn't safe. I looked at the photos again, tracing lines between pins, trying to make sense of the network he'd built. Patterns emerged. Old family friends, strangers, acquaintances. Some had been planted to watch me, some to guide me, some to influence me. And in the center, me, but not exactly me. Someone like me, but molded, monitored, curated. I swallowed, heart hammering. What does this mean? Who am I really? He stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability flicker in his eyes. You are yourself, but not entirely. You are also what I made you, and now you are ready to understand why. I shook my head. I don't understand. I don't understand anything. Why all this manipulation? Why my life? Why the fear, the paranoia, the everything? He took a deep breath. Because, in truth, your family, your parents, they were involved in something dangerous. Something that could have destroyed you before you even knew you existed. And I couldn't let that happen. That's why I've been here. That's why I've been watching, guiding, controlling. I felt my knees buckle. My parents, you're saying all of this, my life, it was because of them? He nodded. Not all of it, but a large part, and some because of me. Because someone had to intervene. Someone had to ensure that you survived, that you grew into someone capable of facing the truth, of handling the events that were coming. I felt tears prick my eyes, a mix of anger, relief, and fear twisting in my chest. And you? Who are you really? Why do you care? He paused, then looked me in the eyes, and everything changed. I'm someone who should have been part of your life from the beginning, someone who is more connected to you than you ever realized. I'm your brother, your half-brother, the one your parents never told you about. I froze. My mind went blank. My heart stopped. My stomach felt hollow. What? What do you mean? That's impossible. He shook his head. Not impossible. Hidden. Secret. Protected, but real. You've been living half a life without knowing your other half. And I've been here watching over you, ensuring that when the time came, you would survive the truths you never knew existed. I stumbled back, struggling to comprehend. You, my brother, and all of this, the fear, the paranoia, the stalking, it was what? Training? Protection? He nodded slowly. Yes, protection, guidance, survival. And now you're ready. Ready to confront everything. Ready to see the people, the events, the secrets that shaped your life. Ready to face the consequences. Because knowing the truth will change everything. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to collapse, to vomit, to disappear, but I couldn't. Because part of me needed to understand, needed to know the whole picture, needed to confront the life I thought was mine. He stepped back, gesturing to the photos, the notes, the web of secrets. Everything you've experienced, the fear, the isolation, the strange coincidences, was all leading here. All of it. And now you must decide. Do you accept it? Do you accept the truth of who you are, or do you continue believing the lies? I swallowed hard. My mind raced, heart hammering in my chest. The answer was obvious. I had no choice. The truth was here, in front of me, inescapable, unavoidable. I took a step forward, voice trembling but resolute. I need to know. Tell me everything. I'm ready. He smiled faintly, almost proudly. Then listened carefully, because everything you thought you knew about yourself, about your family, about the world, is about to be revealed. And as he began to speak, I realized the final twist, the revelation I'd been circling toward. The reason for the fear, the paranoia, the obsession was not just about him, not just about me. It was about the entire world I had thought I understood, now fractured into shadows and truths I could barely comprehend. Everything I thought I knew about myself, everything I trusted, everything I believed, had been a lie, and I would never, ever be the same. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.